Okay, so today I'm going to go over an 820-3023 board that is not charging and is not seeing the charger. And as usual, it is the same old shit. Apple, you never learn. Why do you make the PP3V42_G3 hot via that's going to the one-wire circuit as small as humanly possible, no redundancy? You don't get 3 pins, you don't get 2 pins, you get 1 pin. And of course, this always blows, this never works. So let's go over a little bit of what I'm talking about here and what I mean. So I've talked about the one-wire circuit, and the one-wire circuit, as I've talked about in many of the videos about the one-wire circuit, is the circuit that allows the charger to work and for pretty much the charger to communicate with the SMC. If the charger cannot communicate with the SMC, you won't get a green light, it won't turn on the machine, and nothing good will happen. So you need the PP3V42_G3 hot rail to exist for that to occur. And of course, on the MacBook Airs, the one-wire circuit is located on the DC-in board. It is still powered by the PP3V42_G3 hot rail, and as usual, of course, you get one very, very tiny via carrying that. Not 3, not 4, not 2, 1. And what happens when water gets on the machine? That one tiny little weak via gets completely destroyed, and you don't have a one-wire circuit. So let's see what that looks like here. So what I've done here is I've already taken the liberty of removing the connector and cleaning the board since I know I'm going to have to replace it. So the 7th pin on the left is going to be the one that is of interest to us, and you can see that I've already tried to do a little bit of scraping away there. I'm learning to do the adjustment. The camera will actually adjust itself according to what it sees, so I'm starting to do that before every video, and it makes it look a lot better. So as you can see over here, number 7 is really, really blech. So this is where it's coming up, right? And this is where it's broken. So I could either try to run a wire under there, which I'm afraid to do because I'm afraid that the connector is not going to sit on the board as flat. If I do that, I'm not really confident in the thickness of the wire that I have. I feel like it's a little too thick and that my connector won't sit flat. One of the things that's really, really, really important when doing this type of work, this thing has to be flat on the board. Not just, I mean, sitting flat, but when you go to solder it, you should actually be pressing down when you're doing those stabilizing pads to make sure that each one of those pins is touching the board really, really hard. If those pins are not touching the board really, really hard, it's going to be difficult for you to actually get any work done, because when you're trying to make your solder joints, it's not, there's going to be so much of a gap between the pin and the board that you're going to have solder there, but it's not going to flow nicely. So what I am going to do here, I've already cleaned that, taken the liberty of cleaning that. I'm going to put this new connector on. Most likely going to be cursing a lot while I'm putting the new connector on because this is miserable, miserable bullshit. And they put this on a miserable, miserable part of the board right next to this DC-in connector. There's a good chance that I may just remove that DC-in connector and put a new one on later because I know that I'm going to knock that off. What did you learn in my class, Sonny? My class, Sonny. Ow. Wash my hands off. Had some flux on there. So I take this connector that I took off of another board. So what I did is I put it in the toaster oven. Put a board that is completely fucked and will never work again that has the same connector in the toaster oven. And I left that board there for about 5 or 10 minutes. I went to the oven, and then I just took the connector right off. So first things first is I'm going to tin, not both, but just one of those pads. I'm going to tin it, and then I'm going to solder this connector on. I'm going to solder the one little portion that I tin. Let's put the right tip on for this purpose, and the right tip for me is the tip that's way too thick because I don't have any other small ones. Come on, heat up, heat up, heat up, heat up. 510, 550, 600, 700. Good enough. Right. Me doing connectors is a joke. This ain't my thing. This ain't my thing. I'm trying to heat that stabilizing rod enough to get to the pad and melt the solder on the pad, but who am I kidding? Yeah, again, who am I kidding? Let's try getting more of the iron on that pad. Okay. Yeah, the heat is not transferring from the top of the rod to the bottom of the rod. At least not enough to melt that solder. That's about as good as that's going to fucking get. Nah, I gotta move that back into place a little better. You're really not gonna learn much from me with soldering connectors. You're gonna learn how to not solder them because I'm so bad at it. Gross. Give myself a little shit stain of a pad there. I don't want too much solder. I want just a shit stain of a pad. A shit stain of a solder blob. That's all I'm looking for. Yeah, and if you want to say that I suck at this, you are correct. I fucking suck at this. This ain't my thing. That's the thing. I mean, if you see that I suck at this as bad as I do and that I can do it, what I want you to be thinking is that, man, this fucking idiot can do this, then so can I. So again, I'm pushing down on the connector really hard, and then I'm going to heat up that stabilizing rod. It's going to heat the pad at the bottom, which is then going to solder it to the board. This should be making you sick. Oh, good. And now for the other side. And you can see there's actually some residual solder on there because this is not a new connector. Because it's not like I can just go to the connector store and buy this. The way I get this connector is by, again, melting it off of another dead board. Which is the sad reality of how people who are forced to do this, are forced to do it and actually get work done. Now, unfortunately, I melted a little bit of the inside of it with the iron, the latching part. That's something you want to avoid doing. That's not the right thing to do. You don't want to do that to the connector. Now, remember the pin 7? So pin 7 was missing, so I got to grab PP3V42 from the other side. We're going to do that right now. So I have to go to the board view. That's a schematic for different boards. So I have to find everywhere PP3V42 _ G3 hot is on this board. So I use the nets feature, which is where I hit the N key. And I hit the N key. And the N key, after I put that in, is going to let me type. I type in what I'm looking for. I look for it on my motherboard. Okay, I found it. Now I run a wire from the bottom of the board to the top of the board. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut up my little battery wire, my favorite wire that I always show you that I like to use. This is wire that came out of an A1286 battery that was thrown away. Nothing special, nothing expensive. Again, I want you to leave this video soldering connectors better than I do. Okay, we tin one side of that capacitor. Get some nice fresh solder on there, which will make it easy to solder too. I take my jumper wire. So, by the way, a lot of people ask, so with this course that I'm doing, why is it that Jess's part is mandatory and mine is not? Well, I definitely don't want to be the person to be teaching you basic soldering. So by the time you get to my course, I'm going to expect you to know how to do some basic soldering. I keep grabbing it with the tweezers too hard. My hand control is not very good today. You can tell when you grab it with the tweezers too hard because you can kind of see the red come out from the battery wire. Whoa, that was awful. I shouldn't really be uploading this. If I had half a brain in my head, I wouldn't upload videos like this. I would upload all the ones that make me look really good at what I do and amazing and smart and like a genius who's just better than all of you. Just magically makes this shit work like a fucking boss in 5 seconds or less. Not the videos that were real that I fuck shit up all the time just like you. I kind of think that that's part of what makes this channel special. So I'm not going to change it. Okay, so now we got to count up 7 pins, right? One, two, three, four, 5, 6, 7. Milan, do you have the DC inboard and cable for the old 13-inch air? Yeah. I'll settle for a cable. Let's hope that the DC inboard is good. For the one that you said where the connector looks burned? Thank you. You don't know if it works? Like most things here. I don't know if this works either, so. So there's an element of adventure to it. I have a green light. Imagine that, and it plugged in. I wasn't expecting it to plug in with what this connector looked like. Okay, let's see if I get a fan spinning. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm done. We had no green light before, and now we have green light and fan spinning. So yeah, again, it's the same old shit. Apple does not fucking learn. Again, make the PP3V42_G3 hot via going to the one wire section of the board stronger. Make it bigger, make it wider, make it 2 or 3 lines instead of 1. It's not that hard, and it would cause a lot less pain and suffering to all the people who spilled stuff on their computers. And I know that you make $40 million a year selling AppleCare, but AppleCare doesn't cover this anyway, so it's not like you get increased revenue as a result of this. Just stop. Okay, so I showed you that the board that I did actually worked. Now what I also want to do is I want to show you under the microscope just a little bit of what that looks like. So again, I can't say that this is the nicest looking thing in the world by any means. It's not a perfect connector job. And one of the things that you can see is that I smashed this with a soldering iron. So when I was pushing my iron over here, I slipped and I touched that. My hands slip very often, which is why I hate soldering small connectors and I hate doing small crap. So it is what it is. So I only have one of these left, and at the moment, the thing is, honestly, usually I'd replace it, but this is one of those people where they dropped the thing off like an hour ago, and they've called about no less than 3 times within the course of that hour, which means that there is no way in hell I'm going to get another dead board in and wait for it to get here to replace that connector when you're calling 3 times an hour. So what you get is this, which I can honestly live with and I'm fine with. And after it's cleaned, it looks nicer. This is the green stuff. This is conformal coating. The whole point of conformal coating is to make sure that, let's say my tweezers are on ground and I drop it on here. This does not conduct electricity. This green conformal coating is insulation so that is not exposed. And the other thing that it does is, again, if it keeps it from getting damaged. So if you're going to poke at it or something like that, if I poke at it, I'm not going to actually be poking at the wire. I'm going to be pointing at the coating, which is a good thing. And the solder joints here, again, for somebody who sucks at soldering connectors, you could do a lot worse. It's not perfectly on point. Each one of those is not like absolutely 100% perfectly aligned. Like, yeah, it's a little bit aligned down, but those are clearly just fine solder joints, and there's really nothing for even the biggest of trolls to bitch at there. That is pretty much the way it's supposed to look. And on the other side of the board, you can see my mess of green shit. That is a lot of green shit. So that is a wire, which is why we inspect this shit before we give it back to people. That is an alien hair. That is another alien hair. And yeah, that's that. So this board works. I'm just going to let it sit in the oven for a little longer just for the conformal coating to dry and also to get rid of any of the junk that may be sitting under the chips. So I ultrasonicked it again just to clean it off after I was done with the work. And then I put it in the oven for a while. And that's that. Another board done.